Welcome at another episode of StableSchool, where we are going to talk today about Curve. And I have with me Gerrit. Gerrit, please introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what is Curve.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. Very big fan of StableSchool, Stable Summit, everything in this whole ecosystem. I have been working with Curve since about 2020, around DeFi summer. Everyone else was captivated by everything that was going on in DeFi, seeing Ethereum finally fulfilling this use case of everything amazing moving on blockchains, and I knew I had to be part of it. So been working with Curve, doing a lot of developer outreach. So I've done a series of tutorials on how to integrate with Curve using Brownie, Viper, Titanoboa, most recently Titanoboa and some ape framework. Really enjoyed getting a chance to work with the Curve big brains and be here at Stable Summit here in Denver and catch up with all these brilliant people who are still grinding it out despite the fact no one seems to like the market.
Yeah. Well, don't worry, it will pick up.
You never know, right?
Yeah.
I've been in Bitcoin around 2014.
Oh, wow.
So I been following the space, dipped in and out a lot. But to me, just the fact that we're getting the fulfillment of the prophecy of Bitcoin crashes from 100K to 80K or whatever this week, it's no, this is higher than I ever imagined it could be. So it's
I can imagine 2014, man, that's been a minute.
It feels like an eternity.
Yeah, well, definitely in crypto. But talk to me a little bit about Curve, CDP-backed stablecoin.
Yeah, Curve has been just so amazing to work with for all this time because all roads lead to Curve, as the saying goes. Because without a doubt, Curve V1, when it had the stable stop exchange, really figured out that everything within Ethereum, the killer app, is stablecoins. So by building the best stablecoin trading infrastructure for it, everything in DeFi ultimately got built on Curve. Then with the release of Curve V2, we saw more volatile assets start to get traded on Curve. So there's still a lot of really cool applications that are getting built around that. And then most recently, CurveUSD launched, and it has a number of amazing features. I think we actually have the time to get into it, which is nice because we don't have to keep it short. We can get in the nitty gritty of it, and you're technical, so we can get in the technical details of it.
That's good.
So it's it's been fascinating to watch it work because even though the TVL of the CurveUSD stablecoin is relatively low compared to the Curve DEX, still about half the revenues that Curve is getting is coming from the CurveUSD. So as we continue to scale this thing and get it to billion, 10 billion in market cap, it's going to become a super powerful weapon for Curve. So really,
yeah, maybe for the folks that are hearing about Curve for the first time, how would you explain the Curve protocol?
So the Curve protocol in its very earliest version was essentially enabling stablecoin trading. So as more assets started to move on chain, there needed to be a way to trade assets on chain. Uniswap was the most famous. They came up with the very simple X times Y equals K bonding curve, which is great for volatile assets. It basically means that the amount of X times the amount of Y equals the price, or equals the constant. So you would see basically the prices just move very, very rapidly because it makes sense. Cryptocurrencies are volatile. You need things to be able to trade with this along this kind of bonding curve that can capture this volatility. Stablecoins don't trade that way. An ideal stablecoin needs to be super stable. It needs to be holding essentially the exact same price for as long as you think it's safe. So instead of this very rounded bonding curve, the Curve crypto swap invariant essentially tries to keep it at a flat line for as long as the people controlling the A parameter feel it's safe. Which means that if it's a redeemable stablecoin like Tether, USDC, which are some of the safer stablecoins, you can actually trade that one-to-one even at extreme imbalances in the pool. So by essentially taking this rounded curve and changing it to make it much more straight, you could enable stablecoin trading on chain. Stablecoins have proven to be, as I mentioned, the killer use case for Ethereum. So this opened up a huge amount of potential for DeFi applications that could get built on top of on chain.
And you mentioned 50% of the transactions are coming from, or the revenue generated on Curve is from CurveUSD.
Yes. So continuing down this kind of Curve being the king of stablecoins rabbit hole. When Curve launched its own stablecoin, it basically was able to build into the actual mechanics of CurveUSD. We'll get into it. They were able to build in this stable swap invariant into the actual like mechanics of how liquidations are performed on CurveUSD. So essentially, what happens is in most most lending protocols, whenever you actually have like usually like liquidation price, right? So Bitcoin drops to 90K, and that's your liquidation price. Boom, your collateral's gone. What CurveUSD did is it said we're going to get rid of that. And instead, if you get into this liquidation range, so let's say from 80K to 90K, instead of instantly getting liquidated, we're going to put your collateral up for trading in a series of AMMs centered around different prices. So similar to Uni V3, where it separates liquidity in different ticks, your collateral gets separated into different ticks, and it starts trading within these ticks as the price goes down through it. And what this has is the function of protecting your collateral. So in the event that the price of Bitcoin crashes from 100K down to 70K, your collateral is going to get converted from Bitcoin to stablecoin over that time and actually protect your collateral. So we've come up with a few different ways to try and like brand it. We've called it soft liquidation. We've called it liquidation protection. Whatever it is, like your collateral is a lot safer going through this process than any of the traditional liquidation mechanisms where you get just instantly wrecked.
So it's like a risk management, like, you know, framework where you have like basically instead of exposing to like a direct liquidation, you have like these tranches that you follow along. So what does that practically mean for like a user? Let's say I put up my collateral. It means like it's not all gone, like I don't lose everything necessarily, or
so the amount that you lose is pretty much the trading fees.
Sure.
So because there's trading fees in the AM, as it sits there and your collateral gets traded off, like you will see your collateral get eroded. So if like on a traditional liquidation platform, it just like boom, instantly zero. You'll see it just like starting to like tick down. And what's great about this is it gives you time. Because one of the things I notice is like, because I've tried some of the like traditional lending protocols and I couldn't really do it. I didn't have the stomach for it. You need to be awake 24/7 because crypto's crazy. It's always trading. And if you're putting up significant size, you can't go to sleep, right? Like, because the market can go down 50% while we sleep. That's just a normal day in crypto. So you're just always having to check in. And you still should always be checking in anytime you're doing anything in DeFi, mind you. But it gives you time because usually in these like massive volatile downturn events, gas will shoot up from like lately it's been 1 or 2 way, it'll shoot up to like 200 way, and you're like, oh, okay, so in order to pay back my like $20 in loans, I'm gonna have to pay $10,000 worth of like gas. It's not worth it for me to even like repay it. So it gives you time to wait and decide what you want to do. You can wait it out. In some cases, the price goes back up. You get deliquidated and you're happy. You can close out your loan. In some cases, it's actually profitable because it kind of serves as a stop loss if the price went down enough. There's a lot of applications that get opened up when you have these like friendly liquidation mechanisms.
Talk to me a little bit more about CurveUSD. So in the stablecoin world, yield-bearing stablecoins, you know, yield-generating stablecoins, very, very popular. Does CurveUSD do that too? Like, what's the mechanism behind it? Where does the yield come from?
Yes, I would urge everyone to check out the talk I just gave on the stage here about the rise of yield-bearing stablecoins, which is one of the most interesting narratives to have come out in the past 6 months. And while everyone's been busy being bearish, like this amazing narrative of yield-bearing stablecoins came out. So CurveUSD, like it's a lending platform, of course, and that's how like you mint the CurveUSD. The way that the CurveUSD peg is held is through adjusting the borrow rate. So if CurveUSD dips under peg, then the borrow rates are going to rise to encourage people to repay the loans, which has the effect of shoring up the peg. Or if the price of the stablecoin gets too high, then the borrow rates drop, which encourages people to take out loans. It's proven to be a very resilient peg mechanic, and it's a cudgel that's like wielded very heavily. So CurveUSD like dips very, very, very slightly, like just a few like percentage, and all of a sudden like you see like the borrow rates like spike really heavily. So the peg keeping is great, but it's not always been the best experience for borrowers because, as I mentioned, there's no such thing at the moment as truly passive DeFi. This industry just changes too much. So even if you're not having to constantly watch to make sure you're not getting liquidated, you are going to watch to make sure you're still profitable, right? Maybe you're borrowing to yield farm somewhere. If you're getting 20% yield farming, but all of a sudden the borrow rate spikes to 50%, you're underwater. So you might want to dial that back. So CurveUSD was looking for ways to basically figure out how to scale and improve this like rapid fluctuations with borrowing. And it turns out that redirecting some of the yield, initially all the yield went to VECRV, which is what I was mentioning. It was able to like be such a cash cow for the Curve like ecosystem. But by redirecting this yield to the savings CurveUSD and allowing that to establish kind of the base savings rate for CurveUSD, it actually creates a virtuous cycle that shores up a lot of these properties. So if you think about it this way, like the price of CurveUSD dips, let's say, by a fraction of a penny, borrow rates are really high. That means that a lot more revenue is going to sCurveUSD. So all of a sudden, there's a huge incentive for people to take CurveUSD out of circulation, put it in sCurveUSD, which locks it up. It causes the peg to restore. It causes all of a sudden the borrow rates to not fluctuate so wildly. So savings CurveUSD launched maybe 6 months ago, maybe 3 months ago. About 25% of the CurveUSD is locked. I shouldn't say locked, but it's being used as sCurveUSD. And since that time, we've seen that the borrow rates have like stopped fluctuating wildly and basically been roughly in line with the market rates.
So basically, essentially, also what you're saying is just that the more people that will participate, or this mechanism is made available to, i.e., let's say people coming in and paying off like bad debt in order to like maintain the peg, the more secure it'll be. So the economic security of the mechanism comes through participation, let's say, of the amount of people there. What happens when people don't come in to repay bad debt? Does that mean like you basically depeg?
So I wouldn't use the term bad debt.
Okay.
There has been like a few instances in the very beginning where certain markets with weird parameters incurred bad debt, but this is not a case of bad debt.
Right.
This is just a case of taking out a loan and not being comfortable because like if people aren't going to repay, the borrow rate is just going to keep getting pushed higher and higher and higher and higher. And eventually someone's going to like feel it because like at a certain point, like, are you going to borrow at 100%, 200%? Like at a certain point, like someone's going to repay. And it does happen. And so far the peg mechanism has been incredibly resilient.
Yeah, interesting. So how do you communicate like this mechanism out of curiosity? Education, very much at the heart of mass adoption is what I believe. How do you communicate, a mechanism like this to the masses? So much so that I guess like what you're trying to convey is it's a very resilient mechanism, thought of well, and it's kind of like there for the masses to use.
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think it like you sort of have to break down like where the current use case of crypto is. Because would I recommend my mom and dad like go out and take out a loan on CurveUSD? Maybe not. I might recommend they like could lend money to earn interest. Because if you go to not CurveUSD but Llama Lend, which is like another application that is built on top of this CurveUSD Llama soft liquidation mechanism, you could lend CurveUSD to the market and earn interest on it. Like that, maybe I would recommend that they do. But one of the nice things about the system is it works really, really well for people who want to like leverage trade. Because there's a few different like buckets you can put people who are borrowing on different like lending protocols into. There's definitely traders, there's yield farmers, and then there's just people that need to like take out loans because they need to like buy real world expenses. So there's a bunch of different use cases, but I would say that like the soft liquidation mechanism like really strongly appeals in a lot of ways to people who are just like looking at trading heavily. CurveUSD is about you can, depending on the asset, like leverage trade like 8x for some of the like major assets, and then knowing that you can like sort of leverage trade. I'm not a leverage trader, by the way, but I don't recommend anyone out there be a leverage trader, but if you're going to do it, because we know you're going to do it anyway, you can basically like lever up like and still have some protection to know that like, oh, maybe if like the market like nukes, you're not actually just going to instantly lose everything. So it's a pretty friendly mechanism for people who want to try and leverage trade.
And then again, I completely understand this, not financial advice.
Yeah, of course. Nothing is financial advice, right?
But that sounds very, very appealing. I actually did not know that as a seasoned trader myself. Like
there you go.
Yeah. And so a lot of these things, like I had a lot of exciting conversations today. It's like, how do you get this out to the masses? Is really what I'm curious, because I think that what's available today is at the very least very useful for a lot of people. but then also it's also very exciting.
Well, the good question then would be, do the masses want to leverage trade? And maybe they do, but it seems to me like they might want to leverage trade meme coins.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not mistaken, that seems to be where the mass adoption is actually coming. The retail is, and that's not a knock against like retail, but it seems like there's a lot of retail interest in meme coins. Curve has never historically had much interest in meme coins. But could somebody fork the CurveUSD llama mechanism and use it to build like leverage trading for meme coins? Probably. You would of course need to like actually talk with the Curve team and license the technology, because the code is open source and that you can read it, but still it's owned by the Curve organization. So there have been a few attempts to actually like fork CurveUSD and build other protocols, like such as like lending protocols and L2s. So it's entirely possible someone could bring this to the masses through meme coin leverage trading. I don't think Curve has a lot of interest in meme coins, so I don't think they do that.
Yeah. Hey, I often say crypto is a space for literally everyone. So if it's gonna be like for meme coins, or like you mentioned your parents, right? Their role could be more in providing assets for like lending. So
in theory. Now that being said, like every time my mom's come to me and said she wants to buy some crypto, that's always marked the cycle top. So she thankfully hasn't said that yet, but if she does, I'll let you know and sell everything.
Yeah. I'll keep it in mind. You kind of already answered it. It's like the main target audience for CurveUSD in this case, or like for the Curve protocol being like leverage traders. Are there any other like?
Well, I do think yield farmers also use it pretty well. Although I just think that you have to be careful about actively managing. I've done it sometimes because like there's like on Curve. So Curve has this whole DEX side of its business, which is a great place for especially like asset issuers to keep and deploy liquidity pools. And because of the like kind of market conditions, like oftentimes they will like launch pools and give pretty good rewards for it, and just people won't notice for whatever reason. So I do a lot more yield farming, and I've been like more than happy to like vacuum up some of these like yields that are getting launched in pools that I consider fairly safe, and for some reason the market just hasn't noticed it. So it can actually be like a really good use if the borrow rates are very low on CurveUSD, which happens sometimes because the borrow rates tend to be pretty much in line with the DeFi borrow rates, and the DeFi borrow rates are pretty much in some level of sentiment check, right? Like it's hard to remember, but a few months ago, people were actually bullish in our industry. And, this is the time like Athena was launching and they were giving 50% yield, 70% yield.
Yeah.
Then the DeFi risk-free rate was like 20% or something like that. So it was like unaffordable. Now everyone's bearish. So like sometimes you can see borrow rates down to like 1-2%.
Yeah.
And if you're like willing to like put in Bitcoin and borrow it at 1-2% and trade, use the CurveUSD to sit there and yield farm at 20%, like that's, I feel pretty comfortable with that.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. I think that lately I've actually been writing quite a bit of content around it. It's the yield opportunities on chain.
Yeah, exactly. It's like slow and steady, so it doesn't get MEV sniped. But like as long as you're willing to like just check in every few days and see how it's doing, there's tremendous opportunity there. Yeah. So I've been in crypto since 2014. The only places where I've actually made significant money has been Bitcoin and stablecoins.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
I often my tagline is like, I won't be able to, like, first of all, non-financial advice. Second is often like, I won't be able to show you how to make 1,000x. Not my kind of cookie.
No.
But I love just like looking around and being like, hey, what's like a low risk? I have a very low risk appetite. What's a low risk way of just like, getting 10, something like 30%? Why not? And I think that this is actually, in my previous conversation, actually highlighted this. I think that financial freedom is closer to us than we thought was possible.
So in my observation, people all have like a different level of time preference, right? There's some people who are trying to get rich quick.
Love it.
And there's a lot of people who are trying to get rich slow.
Agree.
And I've noticed that in crypto is kind of a sorting mechanism where the people who are trying to get rich quick are paying money to those who are trying to get rich slow.
Yeah. I love how you framed it. That different people are on a different time horizon.
Right.
Yeah. And I, for me, it's always been like slow and steady wins the race. Like it's boring, it's not sexy. It's just like how I like to roll.
And I've been in the space like actively in DeFi 4 years and crypto since 2014. You've been around the block, and you've probably seen these people that just come in and burn right out. And
yeah, I mean, like, to be very honest, it goes both ways. I've seen more people coming getting burned leaving and being like never crypto again, or lose like a lot of money. I think that the one that gets a lot of attention is people who are like, oh, I mean, I made 7-8 figures and like, you know, flipped it in 1,000x. I mean, good for them. I just like I'm very opinionated, and I have a question for you. But I'm very opinionated. I don't think meme coins, you know, are good for mass adoption. I think that, you know, with the recent presidential launches of meme coin, whoever the presidents were, I think that it created a lot of exposure and attention. But I saw a tweet of a friend who I'll not name, but said that more people. It reminded him of 2022. People got burned, and left, and said never again. And that's what I saw as well with the recent meme coin launches.
Yes, I agree. I think that, so I'm not a fan of meme coins. I'm allowed to say that. Some people surprisingly aren't allowed to say that.
Oh, really?
Because
Okay.
if you're pitching VCs, there's a lot of VCs that like meme coins.
Yeah, fair.
And they say it's not politically correct to say that you dislike meme coins. Thankfully, Curve is very anti-VC, so I have a little bit more freedom to talk about these things.
Yeah, you will not get canceled on this podcast.
Yeah, exactly, right. Well, you never know. Like, but I don't think meme coins are good. And I've talked to a lot of people, and like I'll state the case that they make. We were just arguing about this upstairs because we were trying to say like, it was like, okay, you like meme coins, like what's the good thing about it? Name one thing. And they did point out that like the advances in UX is something that we always talk about.
Oh, wow, that's a good point.
And I was like, okay, that's a fair point. Like if you actually like use, like people say the Solana wallets are better than the Ethereum wallets. And they actually say, like, cited specific examples of things that are tough to do with our like current DeFi wallets that you could actually easily do using all these various like meme coin things. If you needed to batch, for example, 10 different wallets and to sign a transaction from 10 different wallets at once, like there's not really a thing you could use on Ethereum that would make it easy to like do that, right?
Fair.
You'd have to maybe like write a script, and even then it's like not perfect. But you can actually do that in Solana. Like, so they're actually building the UX advances that any degenerate like meme coin trader can hop on and use. So like maybe that's going to help like inspire UX on Ethereum.
You know,
it's a good point.
That is a very good point. I just realized one thing, and this is maybe not like maybe a bit off topic. Don't you think it's fascinating that Ethereum ecosystem has a better developer experience than Solana? Like, you know, generally speaking, but Solana has the better user experience, which you'd argue that would be harder to achieve with the more difficult developer experience.
It's a good point. Yeah, I didn't think about that. I mean, like, I think that maybe we're like just too like much sniffing our own odors here, but like, like the Ethereum devs are so brilliant. Like, it tends to attract just really smart people. It's also how I found my way to Curve, right? Yeah. Like, you want to be in the room where you're the dumbest person, and I'm definitely there on Curve, right?
Yeah.
And like that's one of the reasons I always was interested in the Ethereum ecosystem, and have always long suspected that it's going to outperform Bitcoin, even though it never does. But I keep fooling myself into thinking it will, right? And you see like the way that they're actually like tackling within Ethereum, within all these like protocols building on top of Ethereum, these like really tough, like complex protocol level problems, and like execution layer, consensus layer, like so much amazing stuff. And yes, like maybe they're building like better UIs for meme coin traders because that's what they need. I don't know. Are they like, I'm dug deep in the like Solana ecosystem. Are they actually building interesting new primitives there?
Yeah, I can tell you at the very least, when it comes to UX, when it comes to like retail facing applications, mobile first, thinking mobile first. I'm a big fan of the Phantom wallet. I can see why
it's
the
good.
adoption.
Yeah,
it's really good.
I created one a few weeks ago to like claim some like airdrop, and I was like, oh yeah, I see it.
Yeah, and it's not only that, it's like applications, like payment applications that are thinking mobile first. Integrations with Apple Pay.
But these are all like that kind of like last mile things that develop. You know, hardcore developers like to like get nitty gritty with the math stuff.
Yeah.
This is like that like last mile of like making the pixels like a little cleaner on the front end that the hardcore devs don't want to do.
Yeah.
So are they doing anything like super innovative in this or?
Well, I'm not the best in the to point it out in the Solana ecosystem. I know they've been working on like NFT compression. So you know, how do you like mint? I don't know. It was 10,000 or 100,000 NFTs at the fraction of a cost, let's say. You know, in one go. I definitely think that you know, I mean, I've always been part of like the Ethereum ecosystem and the Ethereum landscape, but lately I have been looking around in the Solana ecosystem, thinking like, hey, how does that work? Because I see like obviously, like you said, is the last end of the part where I see like a lot of retail coming in. That's very much like a UX UI, like a very much like mobile first approach. It's like an application level. On the protocol level, I wouldn't be able to like comment on it like properly. Perhaps
Right.
these are
Interesting.
just like the few things that I heard of, like
Yeah.
on panels, etc.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to check it out. Like, like I want to be like a realist in the
Yeah.
space, right? Like, I
Fair.
don't want to say like I'm married to this or married to that. Like, I want to like just say where the users are. That being said, to bring back to Curve like I always do, I think that there is opportunity if someone wanted to do it to fork Curve's Llama Lend protocol, which is its like lending interface, and use it to build the ability to short meme coins. Because you could do it pretty easily, and I think you could actually convince people. So what it needs is like it needs people who are willing to supply the meme coin for the shorting. And I think people would do it because what else are they gonna do with the meme coins? There's not a lot else to do with it. They can earn interest on it while they're waiting, but like
that's a very interesting use case. For Curve to build a product that allows you to short meme coins.
I'm just saying, I'm gonna throw that out there. Like if someone wants to build it, like come talk. Like we can make it. We can help hook you up.
Yeah. For Curve, I've got two more questions for you. One is, where is Curve going? Like, what was the horizon of 5 to 10 years? Like, how do you see Curve developing? What role does it play, like, in the DeFi ecosystem?
Yeah, great question. So the tagline for Curve is "All roads lead to Curve." I think that's going to continue to be true. It's going to continue to be the central liquidity hub. I mean, if you ask me, the next like 5 to 10 years of Ethereum DeFi is going to be like a massive wave of stablecoins coming that's going to make all of us blush. So I think that the story of the past couple of years has been Tether went from this business model, which didn't quite make sense, to becoming the most profitable company on the planet per employee, because they have $150 billion of Tether. They give no yield. Every other stablecoin we're talking about is giving away some amount of yield. Tether's giving no yield. So they're just keeping all that money for themselves. And every other company is jealous. Like BlackRock can't do that. PayPal can't do that. And as a result, you're seeing every major traditional finance institution salivating about how could they like take some of that business. And they'll find a way to get there, I think. And I think it's going to happen over the next 5 to 10 years. And I think they're all going to be issuing like massive amounts of stable coins in amounts that we can't get to in DeFi because they have access to the money spigot in a way we don't. These shit coins are going to be coming online. Curve's the best place for stablecoin trading, so a lot is going to wind up on Curve. So the stablecoin exchange business is like extremely exciting for Curve. In this process, Curve is going to work on scaling CurveUSD, and I think as a result of that, we're going to see that it becomes a significant player central to the stablecoin trading application, and thus more and more use cases for CurveUSD, which continues to bring the borrow rate down to like whatever the market rate is without these wild volatility swings. So I think we're going to see CurveUSD become a central player in this. And then I think we're going to start seeing more and more DeFi applications moving on chain, and Curve, in particular the V2 crypto swap algorithm, which it's launched about 3-4 years ago at this point. And I still don't think the market is quite appreciating a lot of the like power that can bring. So Curve's founder, Michael Egorov, recently announced a project called Yield Basis. And Yield Basis is essentially using this crypto swap V2 algorithm for better like tracking the internal rebalancing and allowing the trading of leveraged assets within a pool. And they claim, I haven't seen anything other than like the public news articles about, but they claim that they've solved impermanent loss through doing this. So big if true, right? Like the amazing like tools that are being built at Curve are going to continue to like find their way to powering like a ton of amazing things. Like we haven't talked about Forex. Like if Forex does actually build a place on chain, the Curve crypto swap algorithms would be perfect for capturing the volatility of foreign currency exchanges. So I think there's a Forex, by the way, is a multi-trillion-dollar industry, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, my wife is a Forex trader. So I've been trying to like red pillar on chain. She's doing some stuff on chain, but like
if any crumbs fall on chain, it's gonna like crumbs to Forex is gonna like be like huge like boulders smashing into our like.
I love it. You already gave 2 ideas. One is like short meme coins, like to use, and then Forex. I definitely think that net new users, net new capital, we just have not tapped into it yet. I think that even in this cycle, like honestly, like again, I don't want to be sour, like I'm not being a negative Nancy. I just think this whole like with the attention exposure we have been getting, more people got burned, left, and said never again, as opposed to like we got net new users. I am very bullish on net new capital. you know, and I think that we do need like more liquidity, like on chain.
Right. But at scale, do you think that these users matter that much? Because most users are just going to pull out their app and use PayPal or Venmo, and they're not going to care. But PayPal and Venmo or all these different apps are going to say, well, we really need to push people onto Pi USD or Venmo USD. So we're going to like settle all the transactions on chain. And that's even starting to happen. And the users aren't even going to know they're touching crypto.
I think that's how like masses will be onboarded. At the end of the day, it's the distribution nodes. So I was literally just talking about it upstairs, and I agree. I think that distribution nodes is where it will reach the masses. It does personally give me a bit of an ethical dilemma, because what I love about crypto is this, that it's very cringe to say, but cutting out the middleman, right? It's like, you know, and this also relates to another thing. It's like, do you really think the yield on chain will always be like this? Like, the accessibility to all these yield opportunities will always be like this? I don't know. I like to believe so.
So yield is just a measure of risk. So it's higher yield because it's higher risk.
Yeah, but still, it's crazy.
As the risk comes down, it's going to congeal on the basic like T-bill rate.
Sure, I can see that. Yet for the amount of risk you put out, like quote unquote, in the real world versus like on chain, the yield percentage is way higher.
Yeah, I can see that.
And so like I have 10 years in TradFi. Like this, like when I told my brother-in-law he can get 15% on chain and like with like relatively low risk, he jumped on that opportunity and he's been haunting me. I had to get on a Zoom call and like, you know,
at the end of the day, yield's always been the killer app, not the killer app, but like the best marketing in DeFi. Like if you get 15%, the market's at 5%, like that goes up like a bat signal.
Yeah, and then in different assets, like it has created a new economy. Like all these different assets that, you know, you can like borrow against, and where you could like even you could utilize to trade, like, you know, all these different DeFi strategies that are coming about.
And in some ways, the APYs are artificially elevated because we're still in this fog of war situation, because people don't understand. They see, is this USDM a good USDM or the bad USDM? Like, you don't know, so you just stay out. And people like us that actually take the time to do the research and pass it on to all of you have an information asymmetry is an advantage. It's the one advantage we have in the space, because you're studying it, because you're here in the Discords, the Telegram, ingesting the massive quantities of information that no one else has time to sift through. Because we're like forging through this fog of war, we're actually like getting the opportunities. So it's tough work. It's
tough work, spot on. Is there any last message you would like to share about like CurveUSD?
I mean, I would definitely recommend that people like really educate themselves on the mechanics of it, because I think the cool thing that with Curve is like the math seems very complicated, but you can get into it and you can understand it. And when you do, you start to see that there's a wide amount of applications that could be built on top of it. So like just understanding CurveUSD, I was able to like pitch how we could, you know, basically fork it to short meme coins. Like there's a million applications that aren't being built still in DeFi. And I just actually like, if I'm going to encourage anyone to do anything, it's build. Like there's never been a better time to be a builder in DeFi. With the rise of artificial intelligence, like you can ask any question that you might be too embarrassed to ask people, and like some of the artificial intelligence is even getting there. Like it's not good at some things. If you ask it how to launch a meme coin, it'll like maybe not be so good. If you say I got this Viper contract and I can't figure out why this line's not working, it can actually give you a really good explanation.
Oh man, you're speaking my language. It's so good to meet a fellow Pythonista. So to my Pythonistas out there, you know, Titanoboa, you've got Viper, you've got enough Python scripts, like Web3.py, like it's all out there. Utilize it, build it.
Exactly. It's like a great time to be a builder. You know, building's not for everyone, but you know, be very careful, because if you're building a financial application before you deploy it on chain, of course, like you want to get experts to review it, you want to get it audited, things like that. But that being said, like it's still a great time to like, you know, go into one of these protocols and just say, hey, can I help out? Can I write test suites? There's a lot of low like priority work that you could just like start biting off, start learning, and it's the best way to get involved in DeFi.
Amazing. Gerrit, thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure.